Think about your mother. Have you ever felt like you're walking on eggshells around her, or a slight misstep might ruin her day and yours? For many of us, this is a harsh reality. It's a world where confusion reigns, where you're always second guessing yourself and you're believing that you are the problem. You find yourself in this emotional maze where every turn seems to be more baffling than the next. Every time you look for answers, it seems like you come up empty-handed. And it feels like you're the only one looking for these answers. I'm Kate, I'm a therapist, and today we're gonna be talking about mothers. Specifically, we're gonna be talking about borderline mothers. So for some reason, I have a lot of experience with working with children of borderline personality disorder. I'm not really sure why they keep happening into my office, but I tend to see them a lot, or maybe I just recognize the behaviors really well. Before we get into this, just a caveat here, I cannot diagnose your mother. You cannot diagnose your mother. Diagnosing somebody that's not in the room is unethical. And to get a real diagnosis, your mother would have to come in to get that diagnosis. To understand it for yourself, we're going to go over these criteria and see if we can recognize some patterns that might be happening in your house. So what is the DSM? The DSM is the Bible for mental health diagnoses here. And we're going to use this today to go over some of the criteria. And while I read this criteria, and there's 9 total, you just need 5 to be diagnosed. So let's go through this criteria. Does your mother have fear of abandonment? This could be like everyone is going to leave her at some point in her life and she is going to wind up alone. Does she have unstable relationships? We call this splitting. This usually goes back and forth between idealizing somebody and then devaluing them. They're the greatest thing since sliced bread. I can't stand them. I can't even look at you. It bounces between the two. What about unstable sense of self? She doesn't know who she is, where she belongs, or what she fits into. What about impulsivity? This has to be in at least 2 different areas, but it could be many different areas, including spending, shopaholic, sex, substance abuse, reckless driving, binge eating. Any of these things where she's being recklessly impulsive. What about recurrent suicidal behavior, gestures, or threats, or even self-mutilizing behavior? Now this could range from a passive to active spectrum here. This could be, you know what, the family would be better off without me. I know you guys just don't need me anymore. Or this could be, I'm gonna go jump off a building and see if you guys care. Pretty extreme, but it could be anywhere between the two. What about instability of mood? Mood swings out the wazoo. Usually this is where people think that their mom is bipolar, and they're not, because their mood swings are going to shift fast. They're going to be maybe a few hours, whereas bipolar, the mood swing shifts for a longer period of time. That's going to be a couple days to a week. It's not going to flip back. What about chronic feelings of emptiness or explosive anger? Throwing things, hitting things, yelling, screaming, intense anger or temper tantrums. And finally, is she getting paranoid or dissociative? And what I mean, this is usually brought on by stress. Is she saying things like, oh, I know you're talking about me behind my back, or I think so-and-so doesn't like me. I think your father's cheating on me. It's something that doesn't quite make sense. There's a lot of suspicion behind it. Or it could look like spacing out a lot, not taking care of the household chores. It could be taking naps a lot, but not doing things that she should be doing. Something important to understand about this, the behaviors we've just described are lifetime behaviors. They're not something that's just happening for a few months. It's not something that suddenly came out of nowhere. This has been chronic behavior for as long as you've known her. Like we said, you only need 5 for a possible diagnosis. And regardless of whether or not your mom has this diagnosis, which we still can't conclusively say, understanding the pattern of this behavior might actually help you in the long run. I think understanding equals empowerment, and we want to empower you and your mom as best we can. While borderline is a singular diagnosis, we're going to talk about the flavors of the mothers that have borderline. To help us, we're going to go over some of the general principles of this wonderful book that I highly recommend called Understanding the Borderline Mother by Christine Lawson. To start off, we're going to start by talking about the Hermit Mother. Now, to give you a better picture of who this is, I want you to imagine Mother Gothel from Tangled.
You are not leaving this tower! Ever!
scary and independent woman, sure. Now, to understand her a little bit better, her main problem is she perceives the world as a dangerous place. She projects her fear onto her loved ones, Rapunzel, and has an intense sense of paranoia. She isolates both herself and Rapunzel in that tower, and she is very overprotective and very controlling. Now, for the child of this mother, they tend to internalize this fear. They have anxiety issues, they have trust issues, they feel both over-sheltered and trapped at the same time. They struggle with developing their own sense of independence. Now, to remedy this, we want to stop validating. And what I mean by that is your mother's fears are not the same as your fears. So stop validating her fears. Start separating yourself and developing your own sense of identity. The next mom is the orphan mom. Sounds a little strange, right? I want you to picture Bella Swan from Twilight. I know, we're taking it back to the days. This is the classic damsel in distress moment, okay? She is vulnerable. She has a great desire to be rescued, either by Edward or Jacob. I mean, pick your team, it doesn't really matter anymore. She tends to have a lot of depression and will act very helpless and sometimes even self-destructive in nature, causing her own problems. For the child, this develops a strong sense of responsibility and guilt around your parent. You feel like you must be the parent for your parent, both caring and protecting for her. And sometimes this gets a little jumbled. You develop some people-pleasing tendencies, and you're gonna tend to neglect your own needs. Remedy for this? Stop rescuing her. You are not responsible for her self-esteem. Cut and dry. Empower her to start solving her own problems. Then we have the Queen Mother.
Ignorant peasants.
Picture the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland. Strong sense of entitlement from this woman. Emotionally volatile, but also charming, which can be really confusing. She's very highly attention-seeking, and her children are an extension of herself. She's very insensitive to the needs of others. For the child, this usually means a struggle with their own identity. They don't really feel significant or important, and they have a lot of trouble establishing their own personal boundaries. To remedy this one, stop following. She can't have any power if she has no one to rule over. You make your own rules in this scenario. And finally, we have the witch. Think of the evil queen from Snow White.
My faithful huntsman.
She's terrifying. There's nothing redeeming about her. And while this is the most rare mother to encounter, all the other types have access to the witch. So they may go into periods or episodes of the witch and then come out to their normal behaviors. So the witch feeds off of pain and chaos and is sinister and cruel and sadistic. And this is the classic abuse trope, okay? She's the classic abusive mother. Very unpredictable and instills fear and terror into her family. For the children of this mother, it's very frightening. They typically have all the classic trauma symptoms, PTSD, issues with self-esteem, trust, emotions, and even psychological challenges. To remedy being with the witch, I really need to tell you, stop engaging. If you can, leave. And you can leave. And if you can't, seek shelter until it has passed. This is like trying to go out into a tornado or a hurricane. You just don't do that. You seek shelter and wait for it to be safe. So we have to remember that mental health is on a spectrum, okay? Not everyone we meet or not everyone's mother has borderline personality disorder. They may have some characteristics, but I think understanding really brings about empowerment, because the more we understand, the more we can do something about it. Personality disorders really come from trauma, and trauma is anything that is too much too fast, like a car accident, a sudden illness, or a death in the family, to not enough for too long. Neglect, just not getting your needs met. Simple as that. Borderline really is more of an attachment disorder. It's more about their ability to connect, interact with other people that drives this behavior. They have this chronic belief in themselves that everyone leaves and that they are truly unlovable. I know it doesn't seem like that, but that is the really root issue here. And remember, people are not bad. Borderlines get a really bad rep here. They're not bad people. Behaviors are bad. People are not bad. Is it gonna get any better? That's a hit or miss question here. with the right support and help, yes, it will get better. You can do a lot of things. You can have a good relationship with your mother or loved one that has borderline. But without this support, it usually doesn't go quite as smoothly. There are some exceptions and some life circumstances that can drive about big change, but usually in my experience, if they've hit middle age and still haven't gotten help or sought out help in any form, then no, there are slim chances that it's going to get any better. So what should you do? Number one, get a therapist. Somebody needs to help you work through these thoughts and discoveries in your brain and help you learn how to set boundaries and all the fun stuff. Okay? Getting professional help does help. Number two, you've got to decide for yourself what you want. Do you want this to involve you and only you because you're the only one that can change? Or does it involve change on your mother's behalf as well? Is she possible of change? Is she capable of change? These are all questions that you should know and kind of have answers for. That's a big decision and needs a lot of consideration before you make it. And third, just have boundaries. You have to have boundaries. Got to learn what you can and cannot accept and tolerate. So we've talked about a lot and I wish you the best. I hope this isn't something that you're dealing with, but if you are, you might want to check out some other videos that I have on the channel about toxic families and other family issues. So good luck to you and I will catch you next time.